Okay guys, so a lot of you have asked about my favorite gun of all time that I used to have on the channel a lot, and I do mean a lot. And that gun is Old Char, my military heritage 1768 was, we'll get into that in a second, musket. And the reason you really haven't seen the gun out a lot on the channel here lately is because I went through a little bit of a defarbing process. Now here is what Old Char looked like when I first got her. And here's what she looked like after my first defarbing, which I'm going to be honest, looked terrible in my opinion. And here is what she looks like now. Let's go ahead and let's do some closer inspection. Alright, so I'm going to talk about a little bit of the journey of Old Char here and how she has gotten to the predicament she is in today. And that really all starts with the old finish that was on the gun. That was really the first modification I ever done to this thing. I went ahead and I stripped off all of that shellac just because it scratches off so easily and it just kind of looks ugly. So I went ahead and I just stripped all that stuff off of there, and I went and I kind of deadened the steel. I think I've talked to you guys about that a little bit. And I went and I restained the wood because it was teak wood, and I'd heard that your options are pretty limited with teak wood. And so I used a walnut minwax stain, which actually darkened the wood pretty good. And then I used boiled linseed oil from the store. We'll get into that in a second. And I used some Johnson's paste wax, which once again we'll get into that. So the one thing I learned about using boiled linseed oil, minwax stain, and Johnson's paste wax is that the boiled linseed oil, it can kind of darken the stain, but the Johnson's paste wax is notorious, I found out later on, for doing what they call turning it to amber and amberizing it and making it look kind of yellow. And if you look at Old Char, like my first video with it, it looks pretty dark. And then as time goes on, it looks more and more blonde, which a blonde 1766 just is wrong. I don't really, it's just wrong. So that was the first thing I did. And then the second part came whenever I realized that I had shot this gun so much that I had worn through the case hardening on the hammer here. And so I could have just rehardened the old hammer, but I wanted to do a little bit of experimentation with rifle shop parts. And so what I ended up doing was ordering, because it's fairly cheap, I think it was like 14, 15 bucks. I ordered a new hammer for Old Char here from the rifle shop because I wanted to see how close it was to the original, and if I could put an original cast off of an original part on the gun. And spoiler alert, I was pleasantly surprised at how well it worked. Then, once I did that, you're going to notice I go on a little bit of a rabbit trail from here on out. And it worked really well. I wanted an original 1766 feather spring. And so I got one of those, and that was me kind of going through. I made a video on it on how to harden and temper the feather spring. And so I went ahead and I got one of those, and I did all that, and it worked well too. Then I was like, well, we've already gone this far. Let's go ahead and just replace all the springs, because I noticed they were getting a little weaker over several thousand rounds. And I replaced all the springs in the stock with rifle shop springs. Matter of fact, I want to demonstrate to you how well this gun actually sparks. It sparks really good. Especially with a good piece of French amber. So yeah, that was kind of what I did with the lock. And once I redid the lock, I looked out at the end of the gun and I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? There's just something wrong about the nose cap that was on here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put there was just something wrong about the nose cap. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip this gun around here. It is long. And so I went ahead and I ordered a nose cap from the rifle shop because I wanted the flare. And that's one thing you'll notice. I'm not 100% done with this gun yet. I still got to polish up some parts, but I'm pretty much done. So I went ahead and I ordered a nose cap from the rifle shop. And imagine my surprise whenever I went to go fit it on there and I realized this stock was way too thick. And so I was like, oh boy. So I went ahead and I started slimming the stock down to fit the nose cap on. And then I realized that as long as I was fitting it, it looked wrong to have a step around the nose cap. So I went ahead and I slimmed the whole stock down to the middle barrel band. And then I went ahead and I put the nose cap on and we were all good to go. And then I was just like, this still looks wrong because now we've got this giant step where we have all this wood right here. It's real thick. And yeah, we got this giant barrel band. So I went and got the middle barrel band and I went ahead and I put it on. And I shaved the wood down to the rear and I had a picture of Bianchi's book, French Military Small Arms from 1717 to 1865. It was kind of where I got my idea of how I was going to redo this gun. And so I went ahead and I slimmed it down and I made the ramp here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and flip it back around. Something I should mention about this gun is I wanted to do a 1763-66 build. And one of the main features of the earlier 1766s was the fact they did not have a rear barrel band retaining clip. And I think I've mentioned it before on some videos that I thought that they did on the 66s. No, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to admit it. I was wrong about that after further research. Now, mind you, they did put retaining clips on them later on in 1768 and 69. Some of them, not all of them. But the original 66s coming out of the factory would not have that retaining clip. And so I wanted to make this a lot like that. So what I did was I went ahead and I put what I call the ramp right here for the rear barrel band. And I went ahead and I filled in the slot with some homemade wood glue. You can kind of see there's a spot there that didn't fill out so well, but it's, I don't know, it's okay with me. And I went ahead and I filled all that in and I shaped this ramp where it would, and I actually had to slide the rear barrel band back so it was a tight fit, and it actually fits quite well. So we've talked about the lock, we've talked about from here forward. Now I would like to talk about what I did back here, because there was a lot of work I did back here. Namely, I went ahead and I slimmed down the stock right here, and I wanted to, and I'm probably going to eventually go ahead and I'm going to make this just a little bit thinner, a little more shallow, because you can see we got a pretty heavy drop right here, and we have what we call a fish belly. That's one thing I'm going to say is not accurate to the actual 66, is this how thick it is down here. Probably going to take that back. I was pretty concerned about the ramrod channel, but after measuring it out, oh, and that's another thing I've still got to do. I've got to get a ramrod drill bit, and I've got to raise this ramrod channel up, because you can't tell, it's kind of, it needs to be further up into the gun here at the back especially. And the only thing that's holding me up is the fact that it's too far down up in here. But I digress. So I may have to, I've got about, up here at the front, I've got about 1/4 of an inch that I can raise this belly up, and here in the back you can go clear up to about 1/2 inch, which would be about perfect. It's going to be thin, but I can do it. But that's something I'm probably going to do for another day. I should also mention there is not a part on this stock that I didn't completely reshape. The entire stock has been reshaped. And that's one thing I kind of like about the Indian made guns, is they leave more material to work with versus some other companies that make stocks too small and too shallow in some points. And so you would have to add wood. At least with the Indian made guns, you can take away wood. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the mortise here. As you can see, the mortise on this gun when I first got it was really off, and I noticed it about all the Indian-made guns. The mortises, especially on the French guns at least, come clear out to here, this step off from the mortise. They come clear out 3/4 to a full 1.5 inches. I think this one was actually 1.5 inches away. So it's stepping down right here. And that's not correct for an actual 1766 or pretty much any French gun. I think the highest step off distance from the lock plate to the edge of the mortise is the AN9, and it's 1/4 inch. So this one right here, based on some pictures and some measurements I took, it steps down pretty much immediately from the lock plate, and it rounds off very nicely right there. Now, one thing I did get wrong again, because we have this fish belly, I went ahead and I inlet around like that. Eventually I'm probably just going to get rid of this fish belly, and then that'll look right. But normally that you wouldn't see a step right here. It would just go straight down over the edge. Again, went ahead and I brought it all back here at the back end of the gun around the lock plate, and also on this side, turn it around, I did the same thing over here. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see it came clear out to here. Matter of fact, I can still kind of make out where I made my first chisel mark right there. Yeah, we're talking about 1.5 inches away. And I just brought it back, and I had my book, Bianchi's book, sitting there, and I would look at the picture of his original, and then I would look at what I had, and I would mark it out with pencil, and I would draw it out, and I went ahead and I made that identical to the one in Bianchi's book. So that's the back side of the lock plate here. You can see we kind of shallow down here, and we got a little bit of a step right there, and then it's very rounded, no step at the bottom, very rounded around the front. Yeah, that is that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else on this side that I'm missing. Oh, also, you'll see I used the old pinhole here. That's actually holding my rammer retaining spring in, which I got from Dixie Gun Works. So, let's move a little further back. We've talked about the lock plate mortise, the lock, the front end of the gun. Now I'm going to go back to my favorite part of this whole entire gun, especially right now. To me, it just looks awesome. So the buttstock on the Military Heritage 1766 is, well, how do I put this? It's not right. And I'm sorry, guys. I know in the past I have said that it was really good, and I got to handling more originals. And I would just like to mention right here that I'm not above admitting when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. And that's why you'll see on a lot of those videos that I made a long time ago, even some not so long ago, I put a disclaimer on the front saying that you might want to check out some of my later stuff because I'm a little more well read up on it now. So I am sorry for that, guys, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll admit it. The 1766 buttstock on the Indian-made guns is pretty far off. I'm going to go through and tell you what's wrong with it right now. First of all, the comb, I got to remember how the stock used to look. The comb came up right here, and it was pretty shallow, if I remember right. Yeah, it was pretty shallow. It was like clear up here, and we had this very flat style over here, and you'll remember me talking about the gun actually hitting me in the jaw. I think a lot of that had to do with the shape of how just flat it was. And the butt stock was clear, flat, clear to the edge here, and then it came off into a perfect square almost at the top, at the butt plate here. And it was extremely thick here at the wrist. There was very small, shallow creases there. I can't remember the actual technical term for that. At the base of the comb. And what I did was I got a wood rasp, and I went and I took and I drew out kind of what I wanted with a pencil based off of Bianchi's book. And I went and I took the picture he had there, and I went and I did it for the whole gun. I went and I scaled it up to what it should look like. I took my measurements off of his picture because I didn't have an original sitting there with me. And I went and I was like, okay, this is how we're going to copy it here. So this is, I took like a lot of pride in this buttstock, not going to lie. So I went and I took and I pulled the comb from up here clear back here. I think I moved it back like 2 inches. And then for the front here of the comb, I looked at the book and it's almost straight up and down, but not quite. If it was straight up and down, I could have actually made this a 1763 aside from, well, actually no, I could have made it a 1763 because I could have just left the stock thick and I could have left this big bulge and everything up here. I could have made this a pretty good 63, but I wanted a 66. And so it's not quite straight up and down, but it's just a little bit angled, pretty steep. And then coming up over the stock here, you can see the edges are all rounded, clear to the butt plate, which is also rounded at the top. I went ahead and I made these, I guess you call them the handrails. That's what the British call them sometimes. Made these handrails, and the way I like to describe this stock is there's a little bit of a, how do I put this? There's a little bit of a concave to the comb here where you can actually reach up and you can hook your fingers up under it and you can pick it up. It's really kind of neat. And then for the coup de grace, one of my favorite parts here, I went ahead and I put the brand on the stock that you would have seen on a colonial musket in the American War of Independence. I put the IG for John Gallet. He was one of the armorers at Philadelphia. I saw an original with his mark on it. That was generally a sign that he had either approved the gun once it had been imported or he had fixed it at some point. And then I went and put the U. States along the bottom handguard there, and that just sets off this whole piece, in my opinion. I absolutely love the markings there. But we got one more thing to talk about, aside from basically carving the entire stock on this gun. And also, I should mention, like I said, I'm not 100% done yet. I've got to put the sling swivels back on, and I got to polish up the barrel bands. But we really need to talk about what kind of finish is this, because this is definitely not like Minwax, if you couldn't tell. I had always heard that you couldn't use Aqua Fortis on anything except for maple, and that it would generally turn your wood green and it would stay green. And I've also heard that it is a super in-depth, gotta be 100% perfect, or it'll ruin the wood, it'll ruin the grain, it'll ruin the color. And I always thought that until one gentleman who I've mentioned before on the Indian Muzzleloaders Facebook page. If you guys haven't gone over there yet, you might go check it out. There is actually an Indian Muzzleloaders Facebook page. And he showed a picture of a blunderbuss. And it was a beautiful, old school looking blunderbuss. And I was like, well, that's cool and all, man. But I was like, I didn't put it on there, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is an Indian made musket Facebook page. And I think somebody else had mentioned it, and they were like, you know, we don't, it's cool and all, but we really don't put originals on here. He's like, oh no, this isn't an original, this is a Veteran Arms. And I was like, what? And I actually put on there, I was like, dude, what did you use for your stock finish? It looks absolutely gorgeous. And he said, I used Aqua Fortis and tannic acid. He used the Aqua Fortis to give it the red color and the tannic acid to give it the kind of aged look. And oh man, it was a beautiful, matter of fact, I'm going to see if I can find some pictures and put it on here. It was just beautiful. He had engraved all the wood on it. Beautiful gun. And so I had already went and refinished this gun again with Minwax, and this time at least tung oil and Alfie Shine. But it's kind of a lighter wood, so I used the Minwax to give it a little darker color. And after seeing that, I was like, I got to try it. I got Aqua Fortis sitting over there in the shop. I'm going to try to Aqua Fortis this teak wood, even though I've always heard what a bad idea that is. And so it's like midnight, and I get out the sandpaper. Yeah, I know you're not really supposed to use sandpaper, but I get out the sandpaper, and it's a light sandpaper, and I just sand off that Minwax right quick, because all it really was Minwax. And I sand off the Minwax, and I go ahead, and now it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I go and grab my Aqua Fortis, and I get my little big cotton swabs, and I put it on there, and I swab down all the wood, and I sit there and I let it sit for 30 minutes, kind of by the stove, so it was getting a little, not too much heat, but enough heat to soak in a little faster. And I let it sit there for 30 minutes, and then I went and took my, I had a piece of iron in the stove, and I grabbed it with the tongs, and I pulled it out the old-fashioned way, and I kind of just passed it over. And lo and behold, if this wood, this teak wood, didn't start to blush. And so it got it kind of reddish colored, and I was like, well, I'm going to try that again. So I went ahead and I did it again. I went ahead and I put, another layer of Aqua Fortis on it, and did it again, and this time it really blushed, if you couldn't tell. Yeah, so I went ahead and I put my oil on, and I give it a little coat every now and then of oil, some Alpi Shine wood wax, and lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, look at this thing. It is, she's pretty. Like I said, favorite gun, all time, bar none. But yeah, so that is what I have put into this gun. And it's been over a year, and I just keep on putting this, that, shave it here, sand it there, put the rasps to it there, burnish it there. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I should mention. This gun's also been burnished with deer antler. Burnish it, Aqua Fortis, oil, put some rifle shop parts on it, rebuilt the lock. Yeah, had a lot of fun with this gun, not gonna lie. And it just makes it that much more special to me. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about this gun. There should be a video here coming up pretty soon of me shooting old Char again, and I'm not gonna lie, I can't wait to shoot her again. I love this gun. But anyhow, that's all we got for today. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Trust in God and keep your powder dry. Bye.